All right, so I wanted to talk a little bit about alternate forms of assessment. These are different ways you can get some formative feedback from your students very quickly, very easily, and some things that I have done over the years in my high school math classrooms. I think this is easily transitions into any grade level and any subject. This is not just directed at math, and I've gotten good feedback over the years from this. So I have here just four hands that have been cut out, die cut hands out of construction paper, and um, the I've gone through several iterations of this, and this is the one I found to work the best. The first time I did this, I just used cardstock and I cut out squares and I pasted them together, and they lasted decently well. And then I got these hands and I was like, oh, this works so much better. So if you have access to a die cutter and you can do this, the hands work really nice because the students buy into it a little bit easier. But keep in mind, you don't have to do hands. You can just use squares on cardstock and this will work just the exact same way. The premise here is that all these are two-sided and they have different colors on either side. Now, the fact that the colors on one side are brighter and more vibrant than they are on the other side should tell you a little bit about how well this has worked for me over the years, because these were three very distinct colors at once upon a time, and doesn't show up on the camera very well, but they are not nearly as distinct as they once were, and they're not anywhere close to as vibrant. But I use these every single day in my classes. I always had my students in a high school classroom in pods of four, and I often got in a math classroom. I often got interesting looks for that, but I had my students in pods of four, and every pod had four hands. And the idea is at any point during point during the class, if a student didn't understand something, so you have the four students sitting in their pod, each student has their own hand. You have the cool colors on one side, and you have the warm colors. And if you want a quick definition, a cool color is like blues, greens, anything that's kind of a natural neutral color that you would see in a tree. Browns would also fit into that realm as well, but I like to use blues and greens. They worked really well. Warm colors are things like oranges and yellows and reds. So all those colors would be warm colors, and these would be cool colors. And the idea was the cool color meant that the student, was cool, where I understand, I know what we're doing, we're good to go. If, however, I say something, and this would happen to me all the time, especially once I got the students trained to do this and they realized that they could do this reaction and I would react with them, a student would just simply flip it over on their desk like that. So maybe just one of the four students would do that. Just flip it over. So you have that student in the class who doesn't understand what's going on, but they don't want to raise their hand and ask a question. But I flipped it over, and the moment they flip it over, I'll see that cool color appear. Now this takes a lot of it takes me paying attention quite a bit in the classroom, right? But they'd flip it over and I'd say, oh, so I just said something, what I just said they didn't get. I need to back up and re-ask that question. Maybe I get someone in the class to re-explain what I just said, or I ask someone else. I stop. It gives me an opportunity to stop and back up and see what's going on. And then they'll flip their hand back over. Or if I say something and, 2/3 or 3/4 of the class flips their hands over, well, that's a pretty good indicator what we're doing right now is outside the scope of what we understand, and we need to stop as a group and back up. So this is a really good, very easy, informal assessment. And I always start off at the beginning of a class, and you always have that student that picks theirs up and waves it around. And I remind them, I was like, no, you just need to flip it over on your desk. It's okay if you wave it around, but you don't need to do that. I will see it just flipping it over. And of course, in the group, there'll always be that one student flips it over, and I'm busy doing something else, and their friend goes, oh, hey, so-and-so just flipped to pink here. I mean, we need some help. So I go back there, and I try to help as best I can. And you always have students who, of course, want to get their favorite color, and it's management at that point. But I found this to be a very good way to collect informal formative assessment very quick. There's no grade involved. It gives me a lot of feedback very quickly. This is similar to a fist of five, but it's less interactive. I don't have to say, hey, I don't have to remember to say, hey, give me a fist of five on your level of understanding. And those who don't know that, the idea is that 5 would be I understand completely, a fist would be I don't understand at all, 2 would be somewhere, 2 and 3 would be somewhere in the middle. So this gives us, this is a yes or no thing, meaning I don't understand everything. I need you to go back. I'm still good to go. So this doesn't require there being I kind of understand it, we're going to move forward. This means I don't understand something, however small or big, let's back up and revisit it. So this is just another option of ways to look at that. It gives you good formative assessment very quickly, and I would encourage you to consider that. And like I said before, I've done this instead of using hands. These are just 2 hands that have been cut out on a die, and I glued them together, and then I laminated them, makes them last a little bit longer. I've also done this with cardstock, where I just cut out the cardstock and I glue them together, and that works really well too. It just doesn't last as long because it's not laminated and it's not as pretty looking. So anyway, you can do stop signs, go signs, or stars, or whatever shape you think would work best for your students. But I do encourage you to try that out in your classrooms. Enjoy, and let me know if you enjoy these videos, and I will post more ideas about this as well that might be useful to you down the road. Take care.